Dear friends, first of all, my heartfelt thanks to the Institute for Public Relations. I'm not only surprised, I'm humbled, grateful, and very proud. I dedicate this medal to my wife, Veronica, who unfortunately couldn't be here. For more than 40 years, she's been, as the song says, the wind beneath my wings. I'm very happy that our daughter Rebecca is here tonight. She's sitting over there. In her early teens, she spotted the first moose I ever shot. It is very cool that she's here for another significant trophy moment. Professionally, I tip my hat to Tony Dyson, who in 1989 hired me into his agency in Zurich. We've been good friends, and we've been working together ever since in different ways. I must salute Harold Burson, his generosity of spirit and great gift of friendship. Harold's way of practicing PR, his wise advice, and his profound observations from the very first time I met him back in '92 make our work seem almost worthwhile. I also want to thank the 11 CEOs that I worked for in these 3 corporations. They allowed me and my teams to carve out space and play in it, and I thank my teams for having played so well. It is their medal too. Last but not least, I want to thank Richard Edelman and his great, vibrant firm. I have the privilege to work with people I like on things that I care about deeply. So looking back briefly, how did I get here and what, if anything, have I learned? When Veronica and I first met in 1972, I actually wrote her a song to woo her. It began, "The cat, it has 9 lives, I have only 1. The best way to waste it is so hard to find." To me, it seems that I sort of did find a good way, or it found me. After taking an education degree and teaching school in Switzerland for a year to prove that I could feed my family, my real work life began in journalism in 1977. I had 12 good years with UPI and Reuters as foreign correspondent, bureau chief, and news editor in Eastern and Western Europe and in Latin America. The news agency taught me some very good lessons: how to be a boss, how to keep my eye on the story, how to plan ahead without knowing what was about to happen, how to help others navigate uncertainty with confidence, most often real, but sometimes just a brave front, how to listen for what was not being said, and how to see what was not being shown, but also how to say what nobody really wanted to hear, but they needed to hear. I actually learned that working in some fairly dangerous countries. In the highly political indoor sport of business, that too proved to be a very useful skill. And finally, how to trust the process of writing as a way to think through problems. I also learned by doing what reporters do, namely to observe, listen, and reflect, that any group wants to be led. So reflection number 1 for tonight. In my view, PR, as is most ambitious, is about how to lead. It is the job of PR to help leaders meet that very deep-seated human need of groups to be included, engaged, inspired, and rallied towards shared goals. So how do we, as communications heads, help leaders lead? First and foremost, we help leaders think things through. We add context, depth, nuance, and contrarian views to often very linear decision-making processes. So a CCO's job is about culture, brand, purpose, reputation, the narrative, and stakeholder engagement. It is about how to shape behaviors, both our own and that of others. And to grapple with those tasks in the force field of a corporation's societal interaction is actually hugely energizing. There are many moving pieces, much uncertainty, and many notions that need definition through clear thinking and good writing. I cannot say it often enough. Writing is key. It helps you think, and it actually helps you lead. The German literary critic Walter Benjamin said it beautifully. He said, "Speech conquers thought, writing commands it." At best, the work could make me feel like a pathfinder, map maker, trailblazer, and road builder. At worst, I would feel totally lost. But I would keep that to myself until we had plotted a way forward. I probably grew most in the situations when I deeply disagreed with the CEOs, but was compelled to understand their priorities and to act faithfully on them. In all this, of course, I have to say that I've missed journalism a lot. The thing I miss most is the banter. Reporters and photographers have a light-hearted, yet very intense approach to their work. They have a clear-eyed view on the mess that power will leave behind if it moves carelessly through society. And the good ones also maintain a sound distance to the folk in power. Reflection number 2. At heads of communications, we can use some of that distance as we learn to find our way. We must also balance the rush to facts of our business colleagues with our own intuitive understanding that facts alone won't make it work. Epictetus, a first century Greek thinker, said this: "It is not facts that govern our society, but opinions about facts." In that sentence alone, he explains why journalistic scrutiny is indispensable to a well-functioning society. And he also lays the foundation that PR stands on, the search for shared opinions that will, in the best case, open doors. 90 years ago, Edvard Bernays would call it the engineering of consent. Today, we call it public engagement. Of all the problems that a CCO will face, changing values is probably the hardest. Values are like diamonds. They're formed over time and under pressure. And the worst situation you can find yourself in is to feel that the leadership team has somehow lost its confidence. At the very lowest point in ABB, when we were virtually bankrupt and totally lost, I said to our new chairman of the board that we were, quote, the glueless, led by the clueless. It was a terrible, terrible truth. Not surprisingly, it took us about 2.5 years to recover. Of course, at times I would bite off more than I could chew, but it never bothered me that I often was the only corporate officer who would argue that the best way for us to seize the initiative in a situation would actually be to let go. So here comes reflection number 3. It is a mistake to think that you can ever be fully in control, and it's extremely foolish to think that you, as a person or a company, always need to be right. William Safire, the White House speechwriter, said this beautifully. He said, "Nobody stands taller than those willing to stand corrected." My friends, there's some magic in the roles that we hold, and even though at times it may seem that we work in the Institute for Applied Generalization, trading in a rare and much needed commodity, common sense. When we get it right, we can change our companies a lot. And when our companies get it right, they might even change the world a little. Reflection number 4. As in our own personal lives, it is in the search for true purpose that companies will find real meaning and their true character. The search for meaning is what gives life meaning. Let me conclude by sharing a conviction which has only grown stronger over my more than 40 years of working with others across cultures. Simply this: nothing yields greater returns than respect. There is no currency more precious than kindness. Thank you.